welcome to Fearless DIY Music. My name is Tristan Lass, and today I'd like to give a little tour of my workbench area where I work on guitars, basses, other instruments, and amplifiers and stuff, and also just show a little bit about what I use for hand tools on a regular basis. I recently did a video about power tools, so this will be kind of an introduction into my little universe of hand tools that I use on a regular basis. So I'm just going to kind of work my way along the wall and go through a few things and just show you my work area a little bit. I'm sure this won't be the last time that we'll be exploring this space, and hopefully in the future I'll be doing more projects in real time on camera so that you guys can see how I work. So starting over here, I have a selection of clamps that I use to work on acoustic guitars or to clamp large pieces of wood together. They are Stu Mac. They're very good clamps. I use these a ton. These U clamps, got two small ones and a large one. I use those to reattach bridges onto acoustic guitars. You work your way into the sound hole, you use the cantilever on it, and those are super handy. If you have watched my fret leveling and polishing video, these are the files in question. I paid good money for these Stu Mac fret crowning files, which I never use. But since I bought them, I keep them on the wall. They look nice, and maybe they impress somebody. I don't know. I very rarely use them. Right here we have some Stuart McDonald just fine files. All sorts of different shapes and sizes. It's a set of 5. Super handy. Highly recommended. Not too much money for that one either. Then we get into some, most of my tools are, that I use for quote-unquote lutherie work or instrument repair are just repurposed normal tools that you would buy at the hardware store. Right here I have a little nut driver with a U-joint on it, which is super handy. It's not a U-joint actually, it's just a little 90-degree joint. This is great as a truss rod adjuster and also for just taking bits and bobs off of guitars that require a socket. Little socket driver here. I have, this is a great little soldering tool. I use this to hold things down and move things around when I'm, working in a control cavity or I'm working on a pedal and soldering. I've got a really old school set of nut files here. These are ancient. I came across these in the basement of the music store I used to work at, and nobody wanted them, so I took them home. They still work great. Okay, everybody should have one of these. This is a reamer. This is just to enlarge holes. I use this on pick guards to enlarge them if a pot, when you replace mini pots, sometimes you have to enlarge the holes. It's great for that. It's great for enlarging headstock holes as well if you're putting aftermarket tuners on. Just a good all-purpose tool to have. This is just a general file, old school. It's rounded on one side, flat on the other. I find use for that quite a bit. This is an ice pick, which I've sharpened really sharp here. This is what I use to poke holes in guitars when I'm building one and need to install a pick guard or a pickup ring, or I just need to make kind of a starter hole for a pilot hole, or just to make holes in the surface of a guitar, preparing it for, pick guard screws or whatever. Super handy, and it's good just to use as a marker to mark where you're going to drill your pilot hole. Another general file, paint can opener, got some little tiny clamps up here. This is another vital tool if you're doing like installing a fretboard. I use this particular clamp usually to hold the neck up at the nut to make sure that it's perfectly tight and square with the fretboard, I should say, holding the fretboard square with the neck when you're gluing it on. Super handy tool, a must-have. Then we've got another assortment of little nut drivers here for truss rod adjustment, or like this one right now is set up for tightening up nuts on pots and output jacks. We got a couple little mini screwdrivers. Very nice. Those don't sit up there very well, but good enough. Good enough for now. But those are great for getting into tight spaces. Standard pliers, needle nose pliers, nippers for cutting strings off, and for cutting wire in general. A flathead, an all-purpose full-size screwdriver, multi-tool. Now, over here I have this beautiful StewMac set, a little mini driver set, and I very rarely need this. Sometimes I come across things that only this will tackle, but for the most part, I use this little Husky screwdriver. It has 3 additional bits here inside the handle, and I just find this one to be super usable, and I use that one constantly. It's just very easy to use versus kind of like having to dig through everything to find what you need in that kit. And this covers most of my bases. Okay, here I have my StewMac fretting hammer. Apparently, according to Phil McKnight, these things are getting really expensive. I bought mine years and years ago. This cost me like maybe $12.95 or something. He said they're getting up in price, which is a shame. It is a really good hammer, but it is a very basic tool. Then I've got a rubber mallet. Always good to have that around. Wire strippers. A good set of wire strippers. Absolutely essential. And then just a good old-fashioned old-school hammer. You never know. Sometimes it takes a hammer to fix something. Next up, got my fret leveler. Once again, StewMac. Highly recommended. Then I've just got a square and some scissors, box knife, my solder. I've got some wick here for taking solder off. And then up here I have a little small selection of my chisels. Really fine on these two. These are these two wooden-handled ones are made in Germany. Very high quality. Another high-quality large chisel. This is a Stanley. Nothing too special about it, but it gets the job done. And then I've got some kind of garbage chisels over here. And I regularly reface and sharpen these. These are just kind of like my rough-out chisels that I use just a really cheap set of Stanleys from way back in the day that I like to keep around. Never throw away a tool, because you can always repurpose it for some other use. Okay, I keep water on hand just to both for cleaning and when I'm doing soldering work. If I want to cool something off real quick, I just pop it with that. Just handy to have a spray bottle. Spare batteries for tuners and for my calipers, which I might as well grab real quick. If you are a fan of Phil McKnight, you've seen this tool 1,000 times on his channel. I use mine very sparingly, just when I need to, but that's the same caliper that he uses to measure things. I don't get quite that geeky. At least not unless I have to, unless something's really messed up. Here I have a little set of, back in the day, this would have been like 1960s stuff. This is just a little set of mini wrenches that you would have gotten at the hardware store for like $1 in 1965. These are actually super high quality tools though by today's standards, and I use these constantly as well for tightening up nuts on things. Very, very handy. I've got just a measuring tape, drill bits, the power drill that I showed off in the Power Tools video. Let's see here. Then I have all the basic stuff, like, here's a neck support stand. I keep my deoxits back here as well. And then in this mess right here, this is just like feeler gauges, every kind of Allen wrench and truss rod adjusting wrench that you could think of. And that's just, kind of a good all-purpose catch-all for very small tools. I always have a scalpel blade on hand, super glue, Keep my Allen wrenches hanging up back here. I've got a number of sets of these. String winder. This is a little homemade, kind of a cool thing. This is my little soldering fan, and I just hook up a 9-volt battery to it. It's an old computer fan, and I just literally connect the 9-volt, and I've got some ventilation. When I solder, let's see here, razor blades, gotta have those hanging out. Lighter for shrink wrap. These drill bits are super useful. These conical drill bits are worth the investment for drilling enclosures, especially. I use these to drill holes in all the pedals I make. So those are super handy to have. I always keep a couple rubber gloves laying around. These are neck shims for the next project that needs them. And in here I just have kind of like, you know, this is driver bits and things like that. Extras that I keep there. In this little cubby here, I have things like my, you know, this is Wisner reflection, guitar cleaner. I've got nail polish remover. I've got lemon oil and every other kind of like solvent and oil that you would need, like to lubricate nuts. This is a little oil that I use for nut lubrication. And these things don't need to be refilled very often. You know, I've had this stuff forever. Very rarely have to refill it. Got some end dust, WD-40. Then this, the Magic Maguire, that automotive buffing polish that I've talked about, or compound that I've talked about. Excellent. Superb stuff. And then this isn't technically a hand tool, but my soldering iron, my soldering station is right there as well. And then I have this that I built a long time ago, and then this piece of 2x4 with some cork on it. This is where my instruments live when I'm working on them. Just a nice little cradle, backstop on it to hold the body in place, and then I just use this to support the neck. Acoustic guitars that way, electric guitars this way. And I don't really think there's much else that I need to go into. You know, I have super glues, and I've got my Type-On wood glue, and I keep my thread locker right here. And the thing about having a guitar workspace like this, or an instrument repair workspace, you want to keep everything at hand. You want to have it easy to use, a good workflow. You want to have enough room, but not too much room so you're too spread out. I noticed that on a lot of channels that I see, some luthiers enjoy like having like a whole wall, like a crazy amount of tools hanging up. And I keep a lot of my stuff that I don't use very often in toolboxes, which, you know, maybe I should pull one of the toolboxes up to show you. I like to keep it tight. I like to keep it so that everything is just a very short reach. I don't want to be hunting for things, and I don't want to have to walk. Like, I have an L kind of style workspace here where I can just go boom, boom, and reach everything. Let's grab a toolbox, though. Right underneath the bench, I keep this one. And this would be where I keep some of the tools that I've showed before. Some of my fret leveling stuff. These are my fret nippers. I've got all of my nut saws in here as well. I've got a fret file, a larger reamer, and then on the bottom of this toolbox, where I keep all of my radius sanding blocks. I keep my planes in here. I don't have a whole. I've got about 4 planes, and then my fret arbor and fretting saw is in here as well. But I don't feel the need to have this stuff out on display. These are not tools that I use constantly. I will get them out and lay them out if I'm building an instrument from scratch. But for most of my daily use, I don't need it, so I don't have it out. And, you know, I guess I should go into a few more things here. I've got a huge variety of tapes here. for all sorts of different purposes. You know, I've got my stainless steel ruler. I've got a plastic ruler over here as well. Then for cutting nuts, I've got this guide here for string spacing. And then, let's see here if I can do this without. There we go. My dead flat bar. I've also got my dead flat straight edge over there, and then a shorter version of this. And I'd keep those right there for fretwork and for checking things to make sure that they're perfectly level when I'm building something. So, if you have watched this long-winded tour of my workbench up to this point, I would appreciate a like and subscribe. A share would be nice, and a comment would be even better. I would love for people to share things about their workspaces, if they have them, and what they enjoy having at hand. So, thank you so much for watching. Please hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Take care.